next section of this conversation, it would be, I think we should talk a bit more about the process of revising your philosophy, because under the NQS in Quality Area 7, there is a requirement for services to have a philosophy, and a suggestion that that might need to be reviewed and revised in line with the Early Years Learning Framework and the NQS. Could you walk us through the kind of process your centre took to revise the philosophy?
We had conversations early last year, and we decided that we needed to update our philosophy to make sure that it showed our current belief systems, and it showed the beliefs of the staff and the families and the general community that are current at the service. And so
we then, I think, was that stage where we realised that it didn't have a lot of clarity to it. So it did need quite a bit of work. It was a small, brief paragraph that didn't show the personality of our centre. So it needed a lot of work. And so the journey began there.
And I believe you used an external consultant as part of that process. Can you tell us about that?
So what happened is we had a lot of discussions amongst ourselves as staff, and before we actually got to the consultant, we actually made up a short letter that we sent out to all the families and staff, just asking for, explaining that we were going to do a philosophy review, and asking for their input. So either asking for just words that could describe the things that they felt were important about East Brunswick kindergarten and childcare, or they could actually make a whole statement. And from there we collated that and we got some ideas, and then we asked to have an external consultant come in to sort of help us sort of really build on those ideas and
Make some
and get them into a workable format.
And then, Shelley, you became involved because you were on leave. Can you tell us how that happened?
Well, what happened was we realised that we needed a sort of focus for all these great ideas that were coming in. We had words, we had sentences, we had paragraphs, and so then the committee and Jane allocated some time that I could use to create this sort of base for everyone to then feed off. So I had 4 hours a week to do some administrative tasks, and one of them was the philosophy development. And so I came up with this original first sort of draft, pulling together all these ideas.
So that seemed to be a critical role, that there was someone who could take leadership of the whole process at that point. Would you agree with that?
I think it was, and I think that the time was specifically allocated for the philosophy. I think it needed some pulling together, and it needed a timeline, and it needed a boost, and it needed something to drive it. So when we were reading and reviewing for our quality improvement plan and got to Area 7 and realised that the philosophy was really quite crucial to that area, that was a driving force that made the timeline sort of push along.
Now, you talked about you consulted with the families and you consulted with the staff and with the Committee of Management. What about the children? Did you consult with the children on the development?
We did consult with the children, and that was really exciting. So we asked the children about what they felt was important about their sort of early learning centre, and they came up with lots of different ideas. So sometimes it was individual pieces of equipment, like a slide. Sometimes it was individual educators, or games that they enjoy playing, things like that. So, but we felt it was important that all the voices were heard in this developing process, so we really did want to include the children's voices as well.
And in the draft version that you have at the moment, can you see the children's voices? Do you feel you have captured them in some way?
I think the children's voices, we had to sort of decide what it was going to look like, and we had the idea that it would be similar to the Early Childhood Australia Code of Ethics, and so it had particular headings, and the children's voices we think are reflected in some of the statements in that. But there aren't their specific words, but the feeling, I think, behind their words is shown.
Well, this might be a good time to look at our second video clip, which shows us a cooking experience in the centre. We'll watch the video clip and then we might talk a little bit about what we're looking at there.
Okay, who knows what goes in bread? Can't read. Okay, butter, do you think butter? Oh well, have a look here. Flour. What does the recipe tell you?
Tells us what we need.
So we need flour. What else do we need? Do you know what this is? This isn't, no, I'll show you inside. It looks like seeds, but it's something else. Can you see, Billy?
Who wants to put that in? Might smell it. Want to smell? Oh. It's not in our Play-Doh because our Play-Doh stays flat. What could it be? It's called yeast. What does the yeast do, Trish?
Do you know what do you think the yeast might do? Have a guess. Puffs it up. Good girl, it does. It puffs it up, otherwise it'll just be flat like a pancake.
Oh no.
You can make any shape you like, girls. Oh, I'll move that away for you. Good girl, Juniper. Good job. Hang on, no, we're going to go round, Billy. We're going to go round. Hang on. Yeah, soon. Making pizzas. Okay, Tati, do you want to go and help?
Can we put the toppings on the pizza? Here's a little piece of pineapple. I've got pineapple, mushrooms and olives. What else? Nothing else? Oh, good. What's that for? Oh, it's hot. Why don't you put it in the bowl? Do you want me to make anything else? Do you want me to make anything else on the pizza? What do you put on your pizza?
Nothing on this pizza.
Nothing. Do you put tomato?
Jane, I might ask you to explain to us what specific commitment in your philosophy do you think that video clip showed us?
I actually think it showed two parts of our philosophy in that clip. I think that the first part it showed was intentional teaching with the cooking, and you could hear both the parent who was running the activity and some staff who were around helping out, making sure that the activity ran well. They were asking questioning, they were questioning the children, they were questioning them about what happened, what was in the container, well it was yeast, what happens to the yeast when, what was the cause and effect of adding the yeast to the mix to make the dough. And it was really great that the second part of the clip showed another parent in the home corner interacting with other children, and they were practicing making pizzas and all sorts of cooking experiences with the Play-Doh. So I think that showed another form of intentional teaching, but the interesting thing is that with both of these clips it shows parents that are interacting with the children in amazing positive ways.
Yes.
And that's just, I think, really showcases those two parts of the philosophy. The community and the families feeling welcome to come in and be part of our programs, and intentional teaching. I'm
sure some people watching that video, like me when I first saw it, thought they were educators and not parents. So it does suggest that you have that very close relationship with families, that they feel confident to come in and work like that.
Yeah.